filming?
I am. So he was saying that he wanted to limit the questions. I was trying to understand what he was saying.
So what we've done is for each of the 4 leading causes of death,
Right?
so the 4 are in these charts.
Oh, education, policy,
And the third-party homicides, infant, slave, child abuse, and homicides
so
and
that.
prenatal. So the ones where there's the most disproportionality. What we did is we created these charts, one for each one. And then at the top of each page, there's some snapshot information about the statistics.
But what I was really trying to understand is how come you limited that? Because I mean, as a member of the African American community, what I know in Sacramento is that we have no community. We have not had the ability to organize. We do not provide services to our own people. We, in the public school system, do not have oversight of any services provided to our children. Our children are failing. Many of African American children are scoring below special needs kids in the district. Yet and still, many of us pay taxes, many of us work. Yet and still, the system, I guess, after Brown was for the Board of Education, that allowed African Americans to enter into the public school system, eliminated our ability to oversee our community. And so, to me, what happened over time is just an extension of the plantation. Because we have lots of service providers who want to document the failure in our community. Yet so we don't have one black contractor providing services to our people. We are not contracting out services as a subcontractor to our people. We do not have a voice in the services that our people get. And I'm trying to understand the purpose of this, understanding the devastation in the black community, because I see it every day. I'm sure everybody African American sees it, but even if you have to solicit our voices in this, the recommendation is not for us to have a real voice at the table to determine the benefit of service to our community. And so limiting to these topics happen in every ethnicity. It just outproportionately is weighing on the African American community because they are uneducated. And I'm trying to understand this. Because I know how CPS works. It takes children, it does not educate parents. I understand how the system works. It removes
in any and every community, there are child deaths for different reasons. And then these are what's on this page here in this chart that you're looking at are the top causes of death. And what struck Supervisor Cerna and what he was mentioning earlier is that he was very alarmed by the fact that African American children die at twice the rate of Caucasian children. And that's an issue that he wanted to tackle.
Well, that issue comes from the lack of education in public service, in the public sector.
It comes from all kinds of things, and that's why we have our page on the social determinants of health. It's broad, like you say, it's historical,
it's broad, but
it's political, it's economical.
But why would you say it's political when 150 years ago we were slaves, and 60 years ago we had the ability to live in the system just like every other person. But 30 years ago or 20 years ago, Prop 209 happened, and no one could look at the effects of policy on any ethnic group. And so it eliminated anybody who can look at this kind of stuff. Now we're looking at it. Amazingly enough, we have an African American president. We have an African American in the Department of Justice. And we're looking at the years of the lack of investment in our community. I'm not saying that there was not money. There's been tons of money dumped into our communities. But what there has not been is our voice in the oversight of public sector services for our community.
So, ma'am, just to make sure that this is clear for my position, I'm just writing down what's not here to summarize and say that the Black community needs to have a voice in contracting and oversight of
services.
services.
Oversight of figured out how services will be distributed, measured.
And just to address that, one of our thing that again Phil Cerna presented on was one of our recommendations was engage in empowerment of the African American community to help implement, inform, and advocate for responsible strategies for these culturally community members, especially in direct service. So very much it's been valued to have African Americans at the table. We've had a significant number of African Americans that have been members of the Blue Ribbon Commission, African Americans that have been involved in formulating all of these recommendations, taking into consideration the community voice. We had the first 3 community forums and the follow-up 8 focus groups.
I understand. I was just saying that it's difficult.
But your point is great.
It's just difficult
having
to
a
engage
voice.
our community.
It is, but so having a voice is really important.
I think it's great because I think that it's an outlet, but a lot of people are not using that outlet, you know, because they've become comfortable, you know, become comfortable with pain in our children. Do you know what I mean? So I think that all these issues are a factor, but we also have to get involved, and that's hard because people are comfortable with where they're at. Does that make sense?
And one of the things too with the direct services talks about developing new partnerships for service delivery programs. So including apartment complexes, PTAs, justice systems, sporting events, light rail stations, and like she mentioned, it's just a matter of I guess changing the mindset and getting the Black community more mobilized to these types of events. Because it seems like, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that they're going to make an effort for this to be more open to where African community may have more access to, but it's just a matter of localizing it and them having that information, knowing about it. Oh, I'm Jamie.
I was going to say, let's start with everyone.
So I'm Jamie Fanner.
Are you with
No, I'm actually just a volunteer and I sit in public person.
She's involved in community work.
Yes, community work. Yes. Jamie, yes. Thank you.
I'm Darlene Ross, I'm county manager for special needs in Sacramento School District, but I'll help any parent who has a special needs child.
I'm Darnell. Just a community activist interested in my people and what's going on here. I've certainly got ideas.
Daryl Levias. Yes. 26 years. Retired.
And I'm Tony Moore, and I'm from the first 5 Sacramento calls. First 5, so that's the group where we use tobacco tax funding to fund prevention and early intervention services for kids 0 to 5. Yes.
And Sacramento University, and I am interning at First Five.
So now one of the things I'd like to say is we had one of these meetings in North Sacramento last night. Our small work group had a difficult time getting focused on giving feedback concretely on the recommendations because we just dove into conversation and we didn't take the time to read the recommendations that are in front of us. So we could just take 5 quiet minutes to, or however long is necessary, might be less than that, just to go through so you can see some of the findings, the risk factors, the outcome target that you're setting, and then take a look at what is being recommended in terms of education and service policy and data, and then we can start responding to the questions that Jamie's going to be recording. And there's information that rolls over to the back side too.
We're working with the city of Sacramento for the housing, because they just did updated their housing master plan. Yeah, they did, and it's not about affordable housing. It's about people who can afford to buy it. So they left that out. So we just
As an intervention, those qualified.
Did you see on the back of page 2, touches on housing
yeah.
under policy?
Yeah. Because I sit on the mayor's commission for EDA, and we were talking, we had somebody come and do the plan, but it's very little for affordable housing. He said that they can't encourage people to come in and want to build new areas for families in poverty.
Hey, take it away, Jean.
Okay. So the first question is, how do you, they're still finishing up. Do you guys mind? Okay. Okay, so how do you feel the recommendations will help to reduce disproportionate African American child deaths? So how do you feel the recommendations will spread or reduce the African American deaths?
I think I think that some positive, but it's not really hitting on it. It's not hitting on
Not hitting on what?
it's not really addressing
Hitting the point.
yeah, and I don't think it correct anything in the community. I don't think it's going well. Like I said, I made some highlights for education, for instance. I like the fact that you want to develop a committee, but for targeting the neighborhoods and the churches and so forth, I think our churches need to become our schools in a way. I think that let me keep this real with you guys. I think we as black people give our children away to the system, to the school system. We trust them to train and teach our children.
Yeah,
See, that's not happening.
It's not.
I think we need to shift back into ourselves. We need to organize. We need to have black teachers, male and female. And if we separate our kids, males on all male schools, girls and co-eds, that needs to be worked out. But I think we need to stop the public school system. We need support to organize our own school system. And in there, I think where we also miss is we're not teaching our kids black history. That's where they're going to get
It's not in the
from.
public system.
And that's what's going to turn it around. Now, it looks like to me you guys want to measure this for the first 5 years. I saw something about measuring this for 5 years. If that's the case,
All the kids will be dead by then.
if that's the case, then I think we need to start with all 6 through 11 or something.
Ages
Because if you're
or
going to
sixth grade.
grades.
So you're going to have to start at the fourth grade because the district changed the policy in the fourth grade. They're going to put them out in fourth grade and put them in alternative programs for behavior.
But I don't think that they can measure this properly because I think their measurement comes from when they're out of school.
Yeah.
And are they going to jail? Are they dying.
No, it's younger than it's throughout that we have a death review team in this county that looks at, Gina's a part of that looks at every single child death of every child of every age.
Right.
So
it's infants and
and that's where this data comes from in terms of the risk factors.
Okay, well, I
I
would
think,
love to
but what I
start
think
with.
I'm hearing you say is that the education has to be targeted younger so that by the time they get older, they're not at risk.
No,
that what you're saying?
think he's saying that we need to work with our families that have young children and have the ability to turn them around. And that's what I'm saying. We have been denied access to the children in our community. Everybody has an observation about how their behavior is, and then implement strategies to redirect that behavior. Mostly, it has been in the last 10 years removing children from the home and going to other families. And then they're bouncing around as they act out. But they're acting out because they've been denied access to people who really love them. I do not believe African Americans love their children any less than any other ethnicity. I do understand how CPS works, and I do understand that we have WIC for family, for food and nutrition for children. But somehow we did not get education and how to treat our children in WIC. There's no training for our youth. And so the public school system is not training our children. And they are still getting a paycheck every day. And they have escalated their paychecks upwards of $250,000. Yet and still, African Americans are scoring below special needs kids. And I'm saying, just as he is saying, none of these make a difference if we can't change the public school system. Or have some accountability for our children in the public system.
I'd like to see them educated. We educate them ourselves.
How do we do that? Well, here's a retired teacher right here. I'm a teacher too.
Okay, well, go that's two.
And my mother was a teacher. And her mother was a teacher.
If I may, I would say that they do nothing fun. I think you guys can volunteer to get things started. I don't know, but
We have enough funds, we don't spend it wisely.
That's right.
We select people in the wrong positions. We should be maybe shoveling or something instead of teaching.
That's right.
well,
It's about behavior.
We've known that, you remember Monroe, America in 1939. We've known what the problem is since they were before. We don't have the generic disease.
We have it to document the dysfunction, and that's why I'm saying, are we here to just document dysfunction? Because I know dysfunction exists in our community. I know that I am 55 in the end of June, and I know that there are women that have great-great-great-grands. So they're like 3 or 4 generations already at 54 or 55. And I'm saying that the women could not possibly have educated their children and their children's children and those children's children. And so that's where you see the dysfunction, because a lot of those kids have been removed from homes, and it's education.
So to capture your comments so far, should we be, I guess, looking at we need an alternative to the current public school system?
Well, we
That's
need
what I heard you say.
oversight in the public school system. We need to ensure that.
Okay, I heard one person say alternative. I heard one person say
Well, I don't
oversight.
believe that they're gonna give us our own schools, but what I do believe is we have a right to have a voice because we're American citizens. We have a right to ensure that benefits and services are coming through the public school system for our children. We need, and especially with the Obama money coming in for pre-kinder, and the district is now recruiting for kindergartners to be in their school system. We need to ensure that those parents are being trained by African American community members who understand their cultural disciplines. We need to have that cultural diversity in our public school system.
I'd like to believe that we can have our own schools.
I'm still hoping that we can be citizens.
This captures everything I put organized black community and promote more culturally competent services and training in schools, public schools, and have more accountability for social services. And then I was going to write, allow more African Americans to participate.
Actually, I'm talking about equity and access in service providers, in equity and access in oversight, in equity and access to ensuring that we are Americans too. And so, at the table, there's little room. There's people who've been here for more than 40 years.
I would like to say that I know we got issues as it relates to CPS, and our children are up in there along with their parents, my people also. And I think that
How many service providers have you seen that are us actually doing the work?
oh, actually, I don't go in there that much. But my point is, and I'm going to say something about foster because I really think that help these kids that are in the CPS system, but I don't think turning them over to
So how can we
is
restructure
helping them. I think that when I was trying to
that's why we're getting your
some of the government restrictions held us back from equal opportunity. For instance, and I have to spit this out. In my culture, it's legal to be Christian, and that's not respected. And that's not respected.
What culture was that?
Yes, but anyway, what I'm trying to say, we need guidelines to. But I have suspended my I'm trying to say that if we can somehow foster a parenting system to allow us to that can bring our children, perhaps we can expand CPS to take those children on. And then we can put them in schools that will help educate them to the future learning. Yes, math, English, and math, English, what am I missing? Reading, writing, and arithmetic. There you go. Reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Nothing like some teacher.
Reading, writing, and arithmetic. We did see doing those four basics, we'll get it going. So now, I'm not
That's
sure.
an important piece that you brought up around teaching Black history, because that is where the sons of writing comes from, to understand history. And that should be a part of education.
Which we're not getting, like she mentioned, a couple years ago, we were saying, that's all right. And they see shit people scattered out there. I don't want to see this. So
you made reference to the child abuse, neglect, homicide. That's one issue. But our focus here is on the third party homicide, which is mostly 10 to 17-year-olds, it's mostly gang kids. So when you think about that population and many of those kids are in the foster years of life, but many are not. And many of them are in school, but many have dropped out. Like, how would you
just talked about that last night at the community.
A couple more minutes, then we'll get back together as a group and talk about it.
Better use those resources that we pay them to do a job that not only they can't have, and well, in fact, sure they don't have much, but we better use those resources.
yes, and I think they're asking how.
Which resources? I've got to get on my
So, do you agree with the policy, like hiring school counselors?
No, I mean, we've always had like school counselors. What's different in that? I'm saying, what's different in these
I don't think there's a lot of African American school counselors in place right now. Not right now, there aren't.
It's a stack up at Grand High School.
Right now?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, what difference does that make if we put an African American school counselor there? If they don't it's still about public policy, and we're still talking about mandated reporting. We're not talking about providing training for families who have stuff in their family that should be done. We're talking about documentation of CPS, and I understand how CPS works. gets against your family, and that's true. Destroy it.
Okay, but her question is, between this age group that are dying, what are our solutions to turn that around?
I think that our
Party purposes.
well, I think that we need to be the African American community needs to be the first party, and we need to have some dollars to organize and promote engagement in our community, and it's not going to be because the overseer and not in a negative way, just that African Americans have never had the ability to organize and engage their community. Until that happens, we will not be free in America, and the African American is not free in California. If you look at the failure, and you look at the failure rate in the public school system, and these kids are going directly to jail. The willful defiance issue, and all of the issues that disallow a child to understand how to transition from task to task, and where that child has to be removed from the public system because they are a safety issue. They'll never learn.
So basically what I do is organize Black community and promote and receive more funding for more culturally competent services, because that's basically what you guys were saying in a nutshell. And training and education in schools, public schools, have more accountability for these different social services, so meaning like some sort of tracking system.
But I think you say we train in these schools.
Yeah, that would be like the culturally competent services. That's what I mean by
No, I don't mean culture. I mean actually having a voice at the table.
And then in the next one, I put allow more African Americans to have access to decision making and promote equity within service provider community. So that again would mean bringing more African Americans to the table to make decisions, as well as allow them to
It's
have.
not allowed, but it's required. But I'm looking for the word required. I'm looking for the shall, it
Put it
shall
here instead
happen.
of allowed. Perfect.
And then also, so how do you feel the community will embrace these recommendations down the road?
But what I think is that it's going to be up to us to have the ability to go in and work with our community now. I think that people are terrified of our people, and sometimes for good reason, because these kids have not been trained, and
What do you think are some strategies to get, you say, the African American?
they don't want you coming in and doing it.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying what you're saying. Yes. So what do you think are some ways to inspire?
I would like to start in the barbershop. I think that they be good there. Now, what you start there is different. I mean, you can't just barge in like, this is the way it's going to be.
But
How about some of these other suggestions around the churches and the apartment complexes?
I think when it comes to places, they want to know that they're secure. Cops are not just, targeting them because they're Black.
They need to.
So until they gain confidence there, they're not going to reach that.
It's providing real training and employment.
I'm saying around the church, have you ever visited an African American church? Just go there up now and observe, say at least 20 or 30. There are a lot of them in Sacramento.
Yeah, that one of
And
them.
the traditional role of Black churches had, especially in the South, when people have been trained, not how to use
Yeah, now everybody's got elections.
This was the role. Every Sunday, Monday, people have been church who were respected. Not, you can go on, I live in Oklahoma, you can go on whatever, all the old bins, beavers, lectures that you want. And a lot of people think that makes them important. I get a job, read a car, and it's only got German name on it.
That's another thing, entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
We have to teach
go
our
and visit the church.
yeah, change our tires, service cars, entrepreneurial.
Opportunities for our youth. Because our young men are
Not just jobs, but business.
But you can't.
Right.
When
Sustainable
young men have made it,
careers.
and they are going to the DA system, so there's no work. There's no employment.
Let's come back together. Let's come back together as a group.
What is there is, what do you call it, a destruction of a human being, because they cannot pay the child
right here
support.
on our
They give the mother who's going to be welfare check and to keep the daddy out of home. None of this stuff, up to here was was established to destroy that community. I just don't, but it affects everybody. I'm not going to say just blacks, but blacks more so, because blacks do not have, they were not free. So, you know, coming from a system of indebtedness, no freedom, and to a system that's still, I have a education. But I can see my boys are not here. I don't want my children, I don't want my men here. I'm not a grandma. I have a 28-year-old, I'm proud of it. I'll have a, you know, when he has a job that he can afford to take care of a kid, it's when he can have one. But that conversation is not happening in most of our homes. And I just can't say, I mean, you know, we had Set a Head Start. And we had Sacramento Employment and Training Agency, where we took all that money and then we put it into, you know, developing, you know, people who have lost their jobs around Mayfair and McCullen. And then we didn't go back and look at that community, which eliminated a lot of employment opportunities for young men, and which turned to crime. And so, you know, we can't ask why it happened. We know why it happened. There were some decisions here that were made in Sacramento that affected the African American community and excluded it because there was no voice in the African American community. And then now it's destroyed. Now you say, what do you do with a destroyed race? Because the race is destroyed. I mean, yeah, sure, there are a lot of people that have a little, even the people who go away and get educated don't know how to, they don't know how to do it. They're still living with their parents. And so, because there are no jobs for them. But, you know, my sister happens to be up high in Caltrans, and, you know, my brother works for the sheriff's department. There, at one time, he's the supervisor over there for the 911, and my sister's the supervisor in Caltrans. But I'm saying those jobs don't exist anymore. Right. And there's no way for that employment to happen. So you can't say, why does this happen when you're not educating people? Right. I'm frustrated.
Well, no, you should be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely frustrated.
Well, I'm very pleased with your analysis because we don't have that analysis sufficiently to actually address the problem.
Well, we have to address the problem. That's why I said I filed a complaint recently with the Office of Civil Rights. And I think they're going to take it because Sac City developed this zero tolerance policy that moves kids out.
I've been reading Michelle Alexander's book on mass incarceration, you know, through, in our, quote, colorblind society.
We don't have one.
No.
Because we have public school employees who are very frustrated about their employment.
No, I think please continue to share that analysis because until we get that being the agenda, you're right, we're not going to have systemic change. I really think so. Thank you.
Excuse me. So our first question, how do you feel the recommendations will help reduce disproportionate African-American child deaths? We looked at, you know, this being a media campaign. We said that media is good, but it really has to be reinforced with some of the educational components and the one-on-one hands-on support groups like the health conductors, we call them youth health ambassadors, and local brokers. That works more effectively for the African American community because the media alone may not be strong enough to actually create behavioral change, which is what we want to see. So don't put all the funding into media. We have a good framework, but we wanted a little bit more meat detail, which we'll talk about when we get to 3. We like also the role of fathers that is listed there, different messages about what their role is and how they can help promote developing their children.
I have a question. Could you kind of introduce yourself, your background, and your connections? Could you do that, please?
My name is Valerie Scruggs. I'm with the Sac Cultural Hub Media Foundation. I was formerly the manager of the Network for a Healthy California African American.
And where they're located, or?
Here in Sacramento.
Your education background. You mentioned education part of it. You know, sometimes we make statements, and as I used to say, the emperor doesn't have any clothes, the interest, you know.
But these are not my personal recommendations. These are our group consensus. I appreciate that. My education is I went to the University of California at Irvine. I have a BA in social ecology and psychology and social behavior.
And in integrity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Integrity, honesty, and our community be more helpful.
Fantastic.
Great introduction.
Kind of moving on. So we mentioned messaging directed at fathers to help them understand their role, and then also importantly leveraging any resources that come out of the Affordable Care Act to make this a reality. We don't want to just give them messages about what they should do without giving them the resources and the information to make that a reality for them. Moving on to question 2, how do you feel the community will embrace these recommendations? We did a good job of addressing the social determinants of health, which is what you set out to do. We really feel like if the community is involved in how the community is involved, how you reach out to the community and who's involved, so reaching out to those faith-based organizations, having culturally competent representatives in the community is going to be key for making sure that the community receives the messages. So that really needs to be looked at, making sure there's cultural sensitivity and relevance. That's critical. And then what's missing, simply because we weren't sure about the best practices and the specific the interventions that you're looking at in implementing, we brought up some of the programs that we already knew of had been successful, and that the funding basically has just been eliminated or decreased for these programs, like the Black Infant Health Program, Right Beginnings for Birth for New Babies, Birthing Project. So as we're looking at, as the group is going forward and you're looking at the how-to, the meat of it, we think that that is going to have a greater impact. As I said about question 1, we couldn't say this is definitely going to be received really well unless the meat of it is done properly. So those things need to go together. We said working with youth, not only on preconception, but on subsequent births, and really making that connection that it's not just your health once you're pregnant and looking forward, but it's the health of the women over the lifetime that's going to have an impact for them. Policy area, we need to make sure that we're increasing affordable housing. This is something that we thought was missing because lack of housing definitely impacts the safety for mom and baby. We also think that we need to integrate connected messages to employment opportunities, having some more depth in that area, and then mapping the available resources in the community and publicizing it. There are a tremendous amount of resources that are out there, but those resources are disconnected from themselves, and also the understanding in the community of how to manage those resources to really address their entire situation is something that's been missing. And so we need to put some effort into making sure that people can actualize the changes that we want them to.
Oh, very good.
I'm going to give you over to her.
I was at the Board of Supervisors when Cerner came up with this. Well, he may be a specialist in African-American problems, but I think I've been around a little longer than him and probably know more about that problem other than, but people make that. Same thing with verse 5. But I posed to the board, instead of from Cerner, just from one district, the Board of Supervisors, if they had the temerity and really want to get things solved, as a board, they should be having meetings, not all in one district. Here, I live in North Highlands, and there are Afro-Americans that live there. I lived there since '68. And that should have been a total commitment from that board. And I suggested that maybe they would look at the, Child Protective Agency. Case after case after case. Something is not wrong, somebody's not being evaluated, and how do we continue to leave things to the cracks? Maybe we have enough funds, but they're not being utilized correctly or most effectively. Those are the questions they need to be asking, looking at that,
Right.
It was last year before last. I said, do they have position description of what they're supposed to do? If you don't, go to Hong Kong, get some $5 watches and a letter of recommendation and thank them for their great service, and let them go and get somebody who can do the job.
Good input.
Does that make any kind of sense?
No, not to me, because I don't want to get rid of people's jobs and.
No, hold on.
CPS
We are not talking about give people jobs. We mean effective people who are working.
I understand.
I want people to get paid for what they do.
Yeah.
Not just because they got a title and not functioning.
Yeah.
Everybody should be evaluated at least once a year, and if they're not.
Including your elected
Cool.
officials.
And I think more or less what he's saying is that our services, what we've chosen to be services, because I remember when, CPS first came in, it was about documenting dysfunction. And it's not necessarily about turning around that dysfunction or training anyone how to not abuse their children. Once you remove these kids from their homes, you're just getting more documented dysfunction. And if we continue down this path, we will be only continuing to document dysfunction. So we need to figure out, what do we really want here? Do we want CPS to come in and intervene in these families and remove them and have these children growing up and they're going to do the same mistakes as their parents did because they didn't have an opportunity to learn that that was not a proper behavior? So we're always looking at the glass half empty instead of looking at the glass half full. We need to
Get
have,
behind the issue rather than out.
exactly.
Yeah, that's.
I think that's what he's really saying. So
Yeah,
we
no,
need to have
that's great.
effective community programs that really make a difference, and we should be measuring the benefit of these programs. Otherwise, we should not continue down the road, because the road is killing the African American community. We're the first ones. Don't fool yourself. Everybody else comes after we do, and that's real.
And I think that's why it's good to point out the programs that you guys mentioned here that have efficacy, right? That's been proven that they're effective.
They're successful. One of the things that I wanted to add that
Listen
we
up.
didn't message is.
The gentleman said about you don't want anybody losing a job. If you ever get a chance to go to Israel, it's not a lot of money in it, but it's a lot of integrity in medical care and those kind of things. And the people who are in the positions take pride in it, just like teachers. And most of the world, teachers are respected. Just as one time, elderly Afro-Americans were respected.
All I'm saying with that, sir, is.
Hold on, let me finish this now. I was AFG chief base steward at McClellan also, did contracts, but I did not defend an incompetent person if the facts were there.
And I'm not trying to either.
No, there are some people say the first thing, we're gonna lose jobs. You're not gonna lose jobs. There's a great need for medical people and for behavioral kind of people.
Yeah, there
And
is.
people who are concerned about the welfare of these fellow human beings.
Okay, sir, if I
Yes,
may.
let's
Of course.
hang on just a second, if we
CPS
could.
is a county
Let's-
organization.
I know what it is, and I know the executive, Brad Hudson, I know.
Sometimes those people
Gentlemen,
are-
let's get through the other work groups,
Okay.
just out of
You
respect
bet.
for everyone's time.
I
We'll
thank you
come
very
back
much
to-
for tolerating
No,
my
absolutely.
tirade.
We want to listen some more.
Nikki. How about all that? Start by introducing yourself. Very quickly. Yes, I'm Nikki Whitfield, and I'm a helper. I'm not going to go on that route for the sake of time. Okay? And you looked at what qualified to stand here.
What cause of death did you look at?
Oh, we're looking at prenatal, infant sleep deaths, okay? And so, let's see. As far as how we feel about the recommendations, there was only one concern that came up, and that we might be taking away or infringing upon rights. That maybe we should be giving them the right to choose and being education heavy. Okay?
So lead more to your point too, on education rather than anything.
Right, because oftentimes when you say, don't do this, then
Right.
it's something, which is the next thing, because as far as how the community may receive it, the first thing that we talked about was it may be met with some resistance because of habits, cultural traditions. I've been doing this forever, what do you mean? So, and with that comes the need to address those who are experienced mothers, and with women who are their age, because these young ladies talked about how they're often, kind of just disrespected on some level, because as soon as the woman sees that they're younger, they're like, well, what do they know? What do they know about? So making the messages age appropriate, and that goes both ways. If it's a younger mother's talking to, so it has a more equal yield. Then number 3, what's missing is
providing information, education without condemnation. And, you know, we talked about it in a lot of the meetings is that there's trust factors. Clearly there's a lot of guilt and shame, and we know in the African American community, these numbers parallel in a lot of the health disparities that we're dealing with, and a lot of it is because of denial, shame, guilt, lack of communication, all those things. So being able to provide these messages without condemnation is important. Need to ensure consistency in the message with health systems, which was I thought was really good. I know Kim, you chimed in on that. Ensuring consistency because I mean healthcare is a big business, right? And oftentimes they're competing against one another. So you know, making someone to actually go around and do quality ensure, you know, and make sure that the message is consistent when they're teaching them. And you know, let's say we're sending everybody home with cribs, but you know, they still need instruction, and the message needs to be consistent for everyone. Need to address those mothers who've lost their children, who've lost their babies. We need to have messages directed at them. Education about putting the babies back to sleep. That's really good because that's part of the problem. It's like when you know that your baby's awake, you know you got to get up and go to work, so you put them on. You know you don't want, you're concerned about not getting them back to sleep, so that's really valuable. And then for young and first-time mothers, again, age appropriate, utilize social media with short, quick messages, including stats about their community, because oftentimes you're like, really, is that true? Are you sure? You know, questioning authority. So, you know, something coming from their peers would be really cool. Maybe some kind, you know, not us putting those messages on or a big marketing firm, but actually their peers and putting it in their language and the way that they would see it. And then empowering the younger people to be part of the
Exactly.
solution. Yeah, that's really great. That's good.
I
I
had
just want to know if we can get a copy of everyone's sheet so that we are with it.
You mean the recommendation sheets?
Yes, absolutely.
I wanted to add to hers because I think it's great that, you know, there are a lot of organizations that give free things to young mothers. And I think that that should always be tied to a training opportunity to work with the family on how to properly utilize it. But we miss these opportunities just as we missed them with WIC. I said WIC should not only be nutrition for the body, I mean, it should be nutrition for the mind, and it should be required a part of the, you know, of nurturing and an infant, because you're coming there before you have the baby. You're coming there after you have the baby. You get the free cheese and milk. You could get some other free items that tie to health, for health.
Because it all gets to health.
Because it all leads to health. But I mean, you know, if they're going to give free cribs, that could be part of the WIC. If they're going to give infant formula, that could be part of the WIC. If they're going to give anything, you know, that would be a benefit, that would encourage young mothers to come out and want to benefit, they will come and benefit. Because as long as there's something, an item that's going to eliminate somewhere else they have to spend their dollar, they're going to come. And if they bring a mate, then that mate will get a benefit too. But if we don't benefit our society, we cannot continue to make a dollar off of people just because they're in turmoil, and the black community is in turmoil, and people are making money, and that is my frustration, because people feel that they're entitled, and that same entitlement was here 150 years ago.
Very nicely stated. Natalie. And what was the topic that you guys discussed?
High use neglect.
Okay, and give me some highlights there.